Oh, God.
You come to learn something and watch a horror voices. Is good.
And Jesus Christ.
You can't even do it.
I can't do it. An hour-long episode where we talk like this the whole time.
Where I will shoot for 60 minutes, but it is more like 70.
Because we get so wrapped up and we lose a track of time like French people.
Let's talk about the horror movie, but first, John, how's the weather outside?
Funny you should ask. I don't know what the fuck. Hot as balls? Yeah.
Hot as balls, and it's gonna storm. It's good.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's supposed to get nasty for the next few days.
Hell yeah, let's get nasty.
Oh man, that's Mr. Nasty if you're nasty.
Oh man, I would watch all 6 episodes of Mr. Nasty.
Zut alors.
Ha ha ha, shooby-doo.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Now, we are, of course, speaking this way because we have watched and we are preparing to review Jean Rollin's Les Raisons de la Mort.
Yes, otherwise known as, this is good, The Grapes of Death, I think is the most common English translation of it, but it's also been known as Pesticide, Pesticide, The Raisins of Death, and my favorite, Foltermühle der Gefangenen Frauen.
Ooh, that is my favorite now.
I don't know what the fuck. German is so cool. Foltermühle der Gefangenen Frauen.
You're definitely speaking the Rammsteinian German there.
I detect a Rammsteinian dialect.
Not the Utiflabdulugleisport.
Ooh, jawohl.
Oh, I'm from the fun part of Berlin.
Oh, das ist a scary movie. Oh, man. I love how we just alienate any possibility of going to another country to get fans.
All them foreigners. They're like, oh God, it's 2 Americans.
Great.
How neat.
Finally.
Finally, at long last, 2 American men will finally tell us what they think about our movies.
I've been waiting so long for 2 white guys to talk on a podcast.
Somewhere out there in 1978, Jean Rollin was like, man, I hope that in like 50 years, 2 American guys will tell me what they think about this.
Good old Jean Rollin, who made like 1 million movies, many of which were porn, and kind of broke out of his porn for a little while to make this movie.
A little bit.
Apparently was a little bit. Which apparently was a big hit for him. So he was able to make a bunch more movies for a while under his actual name, and continued making porn, but he used the name Robert Xavier.
Oh, cool. That does sound like a porn guy's name.
Robert Xavier. It's like, okay, cool. Right on. So,
yeah, you can definitely see the pornographic influences here. This movie is gory, which, like, the gore effects are pretty awesome for 1978. Pretty intense. And also almost always accompanied by naked women.
Yes, that is a trademark of his. I've always read that. This is his first movie. I mean, this is my first of his movies that I've seen, and it definitely did not disappoint. I believe there was only one of the main 4 female characters that did not show her boobs. So
yeah.
So that's that. In other words, he was holding back.
He was. And to be fair, most of the women who were naked when their bodies were horribly mutilated to death were not, in fact, full frontal nudity, just topless.
This is true.
Yeah.
Also, apparently the during the shoot, because they shot this in the mountains, it was so fucking cold that the main actress, I think it were one of the actresses in one of the scenes, literally could not speak.
Yeah.
And also, it was so cold, the makeup was freezing on their faces. They couldn't get the makeup effects to work properly.
Oh, no. Yeah, that makes sense, because there were some points where, like, the face makeup was looking a little worse.
Very waxy.
Yeah, I bet it was the scene where she gets, like, completely naked. She was like, no, I'm not infected. Look at my entire body. And the guys just, like, stand there for a few seconds and, you don't have to do that.
I know that was... But we're all glad you did. Out of the actors, the only ones I found that were in anything that I recognized was Brigitte Lahaye, or whatever the fuck her name is, who played La Grande Femme Blonde. So I'm assuming it was the one you were talking about that gets almost full. Yeah, all naked, yeah. Apparently she was known as being a porn star, and this was like her first foray into actual acting, and Rollin had a thing, not like, well, maybe romantically, but he thought that she had a certain presence, which, yeah, she certainly did when she took that dress off. No, she was gorgeous. She had a really unique face. Like, the first time they show her on screen, she looked like a mannequin. Like, her face was just such an idealized white blonde-haired woman's face. It was weird. Anyways, if that's the person I'm thinking of, she went on to be in one of the French New Extremity films called Calvaire, which is really good. It's kind of like a French take on Texas Chainsaw. It's one I'd like to do eventually. And she was also in Henry and June, the movie about the American author, whatever the fuck his name is, and his relationship with Anais Nin. The sexy... Henry Miller? The Sexy Time movie. He wrote The Tropic of Cancer, which was really good. And there's a lot... It's like a semi-autobiographical novel, and there's lots of sexy time in it.
Semi-autoerotic.
Yeah, semigrata, rada, clocka, frockendockel.
Yeah, les petites raisons.
Oui.
De la mort.
Tea.
Yeah. The little grape of death.
Ah, mais oui.
Fantastic. Yeah. A veritable tour through Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's good. You mentioned, like, her striking face, and that is it's a weird thing in this movie that, like, in a movie where women are getting naked all of the time, and there's also, like, very graphic gore effects, like 1978 style, the faces of the characters are, like, very notable and, like, really, like, instantly seared into your memory. Like, not even just the female characters, but just, like, all of these people are just, like, so, like, zoomed in on and, like, given so much like screen presence that it's really like, wow, I can see this being iconic. Like, the movie is not great in a lot of ways, but it is, like, instantly memorable, and, like, you'll remember it with more fondness probably than you will have in the middle of watching it.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique film. I mean, it's a weird take on zombies, a la France. So of course they have to inject wine into it somehow.
Inject wine directly into the zombie.
This was considered the first French gore film, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. And also hilarious that it took them until 1978 to make a gore film. Also weird to watch this movie because I recognize that type of French situation because I lived in France in 1978.
Nice. Oh, you were like, hey, oui! Yeah, look at that!
Look at all the French things!
Oh, look, Is it mountain? Is it countryside? Where are we?
Those French country home, like the interiors of those French country style homes they were ubiquitous in France. Like, we used to vacation, go to Normandy to like the D-Day locations and stuff like that. And at one time we stayed in this like farmhouse that I guess they were like renting out rooms. And it was exactly like some of those settings inside, except, they actually owned furniture and stuff. It wasn't like one table. It was not like the fucking crazy, like, weird bachelor pad with, like, stuffed bobcats and shit. That was weird.
Yeah, that was really weird. And she's like, look at all of the nice stuff they have. And I was like, oh, God, what?
Cool. Is this where Guillermo del Toro goes on vacation?
The blankets are just pelts. Like, oh, God. No.
That was quite the chalet.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck out to me was that horrible staircase that they went down that was just basically like a log with some planks stuck in it. It's like, oh no, I would not use those stairs.
I know, it's like, okay, I understand that you're going for the rustic thing, but do you have to have like a fireman's pole that is basically just a tree trunk?
Yeah.
With the bark still on it? Like, Jesus. It was amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, I figured, so we talked about how, like, we just, like, wrap it up at the end, but by then, whatever. So I was thinking we should, before we dive into reviewing it, we should say, who is this movie for? Like, who should watch it? What like, situation should you be in order to enjoy it? Like, who is this movie for?
Yeah, I mean, it's for movie nerds, for sure. And it's for, people that probably want to have a little bit more, maybe a deeper knowledge of horror film, maybe fans of French cinema, because he's definitely a big name, really just in the film world in general. He's kind of notorious for basically this kind of movie, except all the gore and stuff. He's notorious for these kind of artsy, this weird blend of highbrow and lowbrow. Just made him a huge hit, plus boobs. But just geeks, weirdos, perverts, that kind of crowd.
It's for as far as horror movies go, it's definitely a deep cut. It's not one of the ones that comes to mind. It's not, making a lot of mainstream lists. You're probably, so it's good for that. It's good for if you're interested in the history of gore in cinema. It's a good one for that. And if you like gory booby movies, then this one's for you.
It's I mean, another thing that he was known for is really prominently featuring female characters and giving them, not just having them be like the main character, Elizabeth, who basically just runs around scared all the time. I mean, she's surrounded by some relatively strong women, which is particularly for 78. And he was known for that. He was known for focusing his films, even the schlocky ones, on strong female characters. That was something that he really liked. So I think that's a great addition to, if you're looking for, if the history of women being, like as how they were represented in horror film is something that interests you, his movies and this one for sure would definitely, go towards that.
Yeah. And I mean, even Elizabeth, like, she is scared the whole time, but she's also kind of kicking ass. Like, she's constantly under threat, and she's, like, doing all of the right moves to escape the situation.
It's true.
She's, like, trying to establish trust, but she's not trusting anyone. Like, there's the point where, like, hey, why don't you give me the gun? I'll help you out. It's like, yeah, why don't you help me out, and I'll keep the gun, you piece of shit. And,
that's true.
Like, she's always under duress, but she, like, makes it to the end. She's kind of a badass.
Yeah, she's got agency, which is rare in any schlock film from the 70s, from anywhere.
Yeah.
Especially Europe, Jesus. But
yeah.
And
for a while, she's even, like, keeping hold of, like, her ethics, like, she's in the middle of this horrible situation, but she, like, finds a blind woman stumbling around and is like, okay, yes, I will, in fact, take you home and help you out, and maybe that doesn't work out great, but she's still doing it.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of it's weird the parallels that we're going to get into as we're talking about this movie, but of some very glaringly obvious ones right off the bat, which was freaky.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so that's who you are. If you should have watched this movie already, or if you want to pause this podcast and go watch it now, that would be a good time. It's fun. Sometimes it's a little boring. It's 1978 France, so some of the scenes just kind of like stretch out.
And it's focus on art movie.
Yeah, big focus on art movie. A lot of really good French scenery.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful setting.
I'm always jealous of Europe because you just like stumble around in the wilderness and oops, here's a whole castle.
Here's an entire village made out of stone.
Yeah, it's just stone and wine. Oh no.
That's an area of France I don't think I ever went to, like south of France, where getting closer to south, I guess east within the Alps and stuff. But it's
I hear it's scarier there.
And apparently that area was relatively abandoned in real life. I mean, obviously they did shoot inside some farmhouses. I don't know how close they were to those ruins that they shot, but that was a beautiful place. It was crazy.
Yeah. Fucking Europe, just having cool old shit.
That's right. Exactly. Well,
all right, John, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, the credits roll while a phalanx of poorly masked French dudes spray pesticide in front of another French dude spraying pesticide from a huge tractor. So many pesticide. Upon his return from Tractory, Kowalski feels shit after inhaling all the poison through the fucking handkerchief that he was using as a mask. People clearly took their cues on how to mask during COVID from these guys. His boss, who I describe as being incredibly overscarved, suggests that he put some cream on his chin because it hurts, and says that actual respirators are on the way, while Kowalski can barely fucking stand. And he's just like, hey, good news. We'll have real masks available tomorrow. Great, thanks, you dick.
He tells him to just sit down and have a drink, and he's like, oh, it's fine, you just got knocked on the head or something like that.
Yeah, just enjoy some wine.
Yeah.
So we cut to a train cabin, a 70s French train, yes. With two ladies, and one is just waking up, the other one is already awake. They talk a bunch of bullshit about having a shower, which hilariously in French is the word douche. So she's like, I am so sleepy, I guess I should take a douche. And then they talk about swimming and making wine and things that no one cares about. And then they head to the bathroom where the brown-haired lady, Elizabeth, brushes her teeth. And there's lots of giggling and talking about bullshit and how the train is empty and they're the only people on it. And how creepy, I guess it's supposed to be creepy. Of course, there's a fucking conductor in the front of the train that they never show you, but someone's driving the goddamn thing. But anyways, the train stops. At this point, Elizabeth has gone back to the cabin, and the blonde-haired one, whatever her name was, is apparently brushing her teeth for like an hour and a half. So the train stops. Kowalski gets on the train and scares Blondie for no apparent reason. She just sees him and is terrified. And then the train takes off. Kowalski gets into the cabin with the brunette, just walks into the cabin, very creepily sits down and is just like leering at her. And then he's like kind of touches his jaw. It's clearly still bothering him. The brunette, Elizabeth, starts like panting. And no, he starts panting. She's freaking the fuck out. And then we see his skin. First, it's like this little waxy wound, and then it's like this horrible waxy wound that follows his entire jawline. And then eventually his face turns into like a blood flesh hot pocket. and with like dots of blood oozing out and then like getting all pulpy and gross.
Yeah.
It's
like
so...
like the Play-Doh press machine where it like spits out the little like hair, but
Yes.
like imagine it's water ketchup.
Exactly. It's hot sauce.
Yeah.
So she grabs her suitcase, which I thought was cute. Nice little, well, fuck this, and grabs her suitcase, runs off, and comes across Blondie, who's dead. And Meatface comes after her. She pulls the emergency stop and bails out of the train, takes off into a railway tunnel. With Kowalski in very cold pursuit, and then he just kind of sits on the tracks and starts crying. and then we see Elizabeth running across the world's foggiest bridge, and it's like it looks like it's 4:00 in the morning, and then she goes past this like equally foggy, if not more foggy, cemetery, tries the gate to get in, it's locked. And I don't know why she thought she should hang out in a cemetery, but she moves on and ends up hiking through the world's most beautiful and sunny mountains, finding herself in a trashed old town made of rocks. She enters a creepy country house inhabited by a very weird French dude with Meat Hand and his daughter. Brownie lays her whole sob story on the guy, who shows zero emotion whatsoever. They're just staring at her. It's really really weird. He suddenly decides that she should have a glass of wine and then stare at her as she takes the glass. She asks to use the phone. He says it's broken. She asks if she can borrow the car. He says it doesn't work. He's giving her the runaround, and he's not buying into her story or anything. Something's clearly not right here. So Elizabeth gets agitated, and then his daughter ends up drinking the wine. No, he drinks the wine with his meat hand. So we see how it's getting worse. It's like meat forearm now, and Elizabeth freaks out and tries to run, and the daughter is suddenly like bolts over and stops her and slaps her in the face to like calm her down. And convinces her to stay and says, "You should go upstairs into my room and sleep on my bed to have rest." So she agrees, oddly enough, and she climbs up the fucking wood ladder or whatever the thing was that you used to go up there. And upstairs she finds in the room that she walks into, a bedroom, she finds a sheet covering a human figure of some sort. So she pulls the sheet back, and it's a woman with her throat cut, I guess? Yeah. And the daughter comes running in and tells her to, don't scream or whatever, because the man downstairs, her father, this is their mother, or her mother, and he killed her. And, she doesn't want to, make him kill them, I guess. So then they climb down the ladder stairs and head back down into the house proper. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of going up and down stairses.
Yeah, I just... you have this house made out of rocks that's been there for probably 3,000 years, and no one ever thought to, build some rock steps?
Because then next they end up in, a basement, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing that I didn't understand. I guess they must be on a really steep part of the mountain, because...
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes they seem to be, in a bedroom, and then it seems like they're in a, but no, they're in a basement. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, because they went upstairs into the dead wife's bedroom.
Yeah.
But then later, they're in a downstairs somewhere where she has to go upstairs in order to escape out the front door.
Yeah, that's
true. And then
true.
Once she's out the front door, she has to go down more stairs that are outside.
I guess that was the white cabinet room with the drawer that was impossible to put back in.
The impossible drawer and then the surprise door.
It's like a wonderful house of magic stuff.
Yeah. It's all of the stonework is great and the woodwork is terrible.
It's just the worst. The French wood mountain fairies are really, really terrible.
I'm sorry, we could not do better carpentry. We suffered from ennui.
It's the fucking weirdest thing. Elizabeth exits the basement and is on her trying to, she's going to bail out. And she's now acquired a 38 special also, which I don't understand where she...
Well, wait, I think you skipped over confrontation between them and the dad.
Oh, and the dad, that's right. They have that. Yeah, he shows up. Like it's like he's been eavesdropping basically, and then they've been talking about him the whole time, and all of a sudden he attacks, and they have like this big struggle, and Elizabeth manages to basically get away and bolt outside, and
but not until after he rips his daughter's shirt.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. He pushes. Jesus Christ. I thought that was something that you were going to talk about. I was like, oh, man.
I can.
Lucky Josh. Well, yeah, it was just like he pushes, out of nowhere, he freaks the fuck out and pushes his daughter down on the table, rips her fucking shirt open, and like I thought he was going to rape her, but then you see that she's got like this horrible fake wound on her rib cage, and then he murders her with a pitchfork.
Yeah, just pins her to the table. And this movie, like, in addition to having really good gore effects, like that pitchfork through the ribs was real convincing.
Yeah, it was maybe a little uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable because there's also like that rape tension going on there too. But then also we hear her death rattle for a long time, and it is real in the microphone and real good, and like this movie goes hard.
This movie gets pretty visceral at times, as campy and not even campy, but just as like low budget as the effects are. There's some really uncomfortable moments in this film, and that is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that rated right up there, but it's not the last one.
No.
So she ditches that situation, goes outside, steals a car, right? And then
I guess it's the car.
Yeah.
Was it the car they had there? I don't think it was that car, was it?
I guess it has to have been, because she walked here.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because she was like, what about the car outside? And he was like, meh, it does not work. And she was like, yeah, fuck that. So she starts the car and she's driving away, and just then Dad shows up. And he, like, gets in front of her, and he's getting all, like, way more mustardy than he was before. And he was like, please, you must finish me off. And so she crushes him real crunchy sound effect style into the rocks with the front of the car. And he, like, even, like, angles his body further down to make sure that she crushes his spine against the rocks. I was like, wow, that is intense.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah. And then later she's driving around. I think the car like breaks down or runs out of gas or something. And out of nowhere, a guy comes up to the window and he's like, please cure me. And he's got like old cheese water dripping out of his forehead.
It's so gross.
And it's really gross. And he's like, please. And she's like, oh. And then he just starts rubbing his forehead sauce against the window back and forth like he's trying to wash it with like old mustard. It's so bad. And she's like freaking out. She's like, So she reaches into the glove compartment and pulls out the pistol. And just then he like smashes his head through the window and then is still just kind of like, rubbing it around like a cat with an itchy jawline. And then she shoots him to death and ditches the car and runs through the countryside some more. Lots of this lady just jogging around the countryside with rocks and grass. It's great.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth is now running around the countryside. Now she ducks down, she hears someone coming, and we see like a close-up of a hand touching a rock too much. And then like one beshod foot and one unbeshod foot like stumbling around in the grass. And she's all like, and then we see like like the first pair of contact lenses ever in this young woman's face, who is blind and just stumbling around in the rocks real bad. And so Elizabeth stops to help her. Her name is Lucy, and she's looking for Luca, and she's from a village, but there was a fight that broke out, and in her haste to get away from the violence, she got lost, and now she's just out here. So Elizabeth is going to help her back home. She ends up guiding her back to this village. There's one dead body with an eyeball popped out outside. And Elizabeth is like, don't worry about it, it's fine. And then they make it back to her, like, crazy castle home, which is just, like, rocks with a dungeon wood door out front. And she's like, oh, it's my home, I can tell by touch. And she brings her inside, and
yeah, she lives on the set of Tombs of the Blind Dead, apparently.
Yes, exactly. All of this reminds me of that movie. I was like, wow, this is pretty great. And then it turns out that the whole village is covered in ketchup and mustard face. Elizabeth led her inside, but then the girl wanders outside again because she hears people shuffling around, zombies, I guess, shuffling around. And then Elizabeth is just inside for a while, and then the girl's... She comes across Lucas. So it's Lucy and Lucas. And at first she's like, I can tell it's you by the touch of your horrible jacket. And the whole town is just standing around dripping while watching them reunite. And he's just kind of like, and then he gets all, and he, like, grabs her and starts strangling her while laughing. Like, it's burned into my brain, his horrible, horrible laughter.
Yes. That
just goes on and on, even after the camera moves away from what's happening. We're just hearing his laughter until finally we get back, and, like, Elizabeth is in the house, and she's like, Lucy, where'd you go? And, like, she goes outside. This was after, like, Lucy, like, went up onto, like, the podium of town and, like, gave a little speech to all of the town zombies and was like, come here, come get me. And then later was like, go away, leave me alone. It's very confusing and very French.
Yes, it is.
And so then now Elizabeth is wandering around town, evading zombies, and then she comes back to the house to find that Lucy has been crucified up against the solid wood door, and her by Lucas, who is, I think, her father or her husband. It's really hard to tell in this movie.
Yeah, he looks like he's 3 times her age. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost definitely her dad, and of course, like a father in this movie, he has ripped open the top of her clothes to reveal her bare breasts, and then with a nice sickle, just chops off her head and proceeds to carry it around for a good chunk of the remainder of the movie until worse things happen.
Yeah, I like when he chops her head off, and I mean, she's already dead, and it's just like squirting blood everywhere, like her heart apparently there was some blockage in her artery, and he cleared it up by chopping her head off, and all the pressure that had built up squirted all the blood out. It was just like, wow, okay. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah. And he's saying, I love you, Lucy, as he's, like, chopping her head off, that was pretty great.
It was.
And the beheading, great practical effects, even though it is silly that there's that much blood coming out of a dead person.
Yeah, definitely. You can see all the, like, giblets in her neck, and the head that they used, I mean, it was clearly fake, but at the same time, the head that he carries around, I mean, it looks like her. It's her face. They look like they modeled it on her face, so... I was surprised by that. Like, you don't expect that in these kind of movies where, like, the little head double is real looking ish. Yeah, I mean, at her face, it was weird.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth is, basically running all over this place trying to get away from these things. And out of nowhere, this blonde person hops out from behind a building and grabs Elizabeth and just drags her away. And like takes her into this house and locks the door behind her and says, don't worry, it's safe. This is where the mayor lives or lived or whatever. And it's like this.
Yeah.
It's like French country disco 70s bachelor pad if you were really into hunting and taxidermy.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that is a fucking apartment or house or whatever the fuck that is. Yeah. So she's living large in that place. And then they have a little talk. It's not interesting. They, she's acting weird, the blonde. She, to convince Elizabeth that she's not infected, she like runs her hands down her chest and grabs her boobs and says, "See?" It's like, wait, what? Not a scratch.
Could an infected lady do this?
It's just like, okay, that was weird, but sure.
And she's wearing like grandma's nightgown too.
She's wearing granny's nightie. And then they head over to the bar and in the house and drink Johnny Walker Red, or at least Elizabeth tries to drink it, but I guess she's never had it before because she's like hacking up a lung. In the meantime, the blonde pops back in, now wearing regular clothes. She has like a red shirt and like a skirt and some boots or whatever. They slip out the door and they, it looks like they're gonna get out of here. They're gonna get out of town. But then out of nowhere, Blondie grabs Elizabeth and holds her like very happily, while the goons all kind of like quote unquote rush in. They, not a lot of rushing with the goons, but
shamble in.
Yes, they shamble in. Mounds of shambling. Elizabeth is extremely like freaking out. She's like beside herself at this point, and there's you get to see all this ridiculous like makeup effects and stuff. It's great. Now we see the blonde again, who's now wearing a third outfit, which is like her sexy clubbing dress. It's like a white form-fitting dress that's almost see-through, and she's like torching the place, just throwing torches into windows, and somehow these are flammable rocks. And she's got, on a leash, she's got two gigantic fucking dogs, like Marmaduke dogs. And she's leading them, or they're leading her, or whatever. They're heading towards Elizabeth. Out of nowhere, the skipper hat goon, who I think was that Lukash, or was that someone else? That was a different goon. He had he had the fishing hat on or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. There's a lot of them. There's like the scythe guy that like gestures with the scythe way too much, and there's a lot of goons.
Yeah, a goon jumps out of nowhere and grabs Brownie, Elizabeth, and giggling like an idiot. So maybe it was Lukash. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The blondie is leering, clearly enjoying herself. She's, you assume she's infected, but she doesn't appear to be infected. So that we'll get to that. Suddenly, a couple dudes arrive in town by car and just get out and start shooting goons until the younger guy decides that he's having some sort of moral dilemma because it's not their fault that they're doing this because they're infected or whatever. It was like, okay. Here comes the blonde lady with her dogs, and she acts like she wants to be rescued, and they're kind of like, yeah, I didn't really know about this. And so she takes her dress off to show them that she's not infected, and I'm happy to report that all is well with her body.
Yeah.
It's
no sores or lesions.
Nary a lesion. A fine specimen she was.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth is being dragged away by her goon, screaming and causing a ruckus, which eventually draws the attention of the dudes. So they take off to go help her, and now she has managed to finagle a torch and is on the run herself. She's broken away on her own. The dudes end up shooting a scythe-wielding goon, which was fucking awesome. And I guess that would be, the Lucas or whatever. Doesn't matter. And then we see Lucas making out with the blondie's severed head. Like, just, it was real gross. And then like, slowly dye passes out or something. I don't, like, he just is like, suddenly, like, and he crumbles to the ground with her head.
He used all of his calories in all of his tongue shoving, and then he was just spent.
He was done. The two dudes are now busy firebombing the ruins, and but just some of them, and then Elizabeth,
and a little dynamite for you, and like, none for you.
Yeah, it's like okay. Elizabeth finds their car, and the blonde is there. They have a fight, and it's delightful. They just are fighting all over the car. Elizabeth grabs her torch back, and basically, it looks like she's beating the blonde with it. But then when we see the blonde, basically Elizabeth has, like, burned her eyes out with the torch, I guess, because she's clutching her eye holes and screaming. Which, okay. And then she like, Elizabeth, like, walks to the two dudes who are just standing there. And it takes, like, it felt like it took, like, 15 minutes. It's just like, wow.
Yes.
She's walking so slow. Falls into their arms. And, oh my goodness, the blonde woman is actually alive, deadish, sort of infected. And she has the torch, and she's, like waving it at the car. And then the guy's like, no, you mustn't do that. It is full of dynamite. It's like, really, dude? So she's just like, oh, thank you. And then she throws it right on the dynamite. It, of course, blows up and kills her. And then, which I thought was hilarious. Off they head through the mountains on a hiking adventure with terrible music to go find this town, Rubles, where they think everything's going to be just fine. They arrive at another rock-built situation, and they sit down to take a break. The younger guy blows a snot rocket, and then they talk about the varying levels of infection and chat about beer and wine. And then that leads into them talking about the local wine festival and how they don't give a shit because they're beer drinkers. And then it dawns on them that, wait a minute, everyone here drinks the wine. We drink beer and we're not infected, so it must be the wine. Okay, that's great. So then they climb a rock pile into more ruins and shoot at a horse. And for no reason. Then there's more pointless chatter about the resistance in World War II against fascism. And they talk about farming and politics and other stuff. And the young guy basically says that he's continuing in this great tradition of Southern French resistance. And he basically, like, thinks that they're, like, I don't know, heroes or something. It's weird. And then they decide that they're going to talk to the goons and not just go gun crazy and shoot everybody. And the old guy he agrees, but, he says, be keeping my finger on the trigger.
I love their weird little chatter between those two farm guys, because they're both farmers. The older guy with the gun is, like, just very practical about everything, and the younger guy who is like, yes, it wasn't just about defeating the Germans, it was the fascists, I liked the ones that were fighting against the fascists, all fascists, and all of this stuff, and another guy's like, bah, I don't care, I just want to do farming.
That was 30 years ago, you knob.
But yeah, that whole sequence with that, like, Queen of the Dead people was fucking awesome.
It was really, really cool.
Now it's the denouement of the film, basically. They make their way to her husband, her fiance's winery, and we get to see French people cutting up a loaf of French bread and passing that around, and just kind of talking about what to do next and trying to, like, phone the authorities.
Awkwardly singing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just having this little nice moment, I guess, and that Elizabeth does not want any part of. So she wanders outside into a winery building proper that also looks like a museum with, like, exhibits hanging up in the whatever. And she finds her fiancé up in the attic of this wine building. He has expired mustard pouring out of his face. And, but he's still, like, got it together. He's like, nah, man, this sucks. You should kill me. This is all bad. Whatever. And just then, old dude shows up and shoots her husband to death. So he's dead now. And then he's talking about stuff, and then she picks up his gun and points it at him, and he was like, no, he was one of the bad ones. What are you doing? And then she shoots him, and as he's dying, he's like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I love how she's done everything to get away from these things, and then ultimately the only reason she even was getting away from them was just to be with her dude at all costs, like at any cost.
Yeah.
You know, infect me, I don't care, doesn't matter, I'll murder everybody. I'm here, and then I'm gonna shoot everybody.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
This ending, I was like, wow, okay, how French of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. She goes back downstairs because, you know, upstairs, downstairs, it's this movie.
Sure.
She goes downstairs and lurks behind a barrel, waits for the other guy to walk around, shoots him. He dies while rolling over enormous wine barrels, almost comically. And then she stands there as her husband's blood drips down onto her face from the attic above. Movie over. I mean, I'm sorry, Finn.
It's great because her husband dies, and when he falls into an open hatch into a wine storage tank, a giant.
Yeah.
And then she climbs into the tank with the gun, and it's like, what are you doing? And then you see the young guy walking by the tank with the little doors, and she pushes that door open and shoots him. It's like,
is that what was happening? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And then she goes over and stands under her husband and looks up, and his blood starts dripping on her face. And then they freeze frame it, movie over. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
That was cool, I think. I don't know what happened.
I think, yeah. So there's all this stuff going on with wine. Whenever she goes to that first father and daughter's house, they offer her wine, and she drinks, like, one sip of it.
That's true.
And then when she goes to, like, Queen of the Dead's place, the Queen of the Dead pours herself a cup of wine, but pours her a little, like, snifter of brandy. And she has a hard time with the brandy, but doesn't drink the wine there. And then at this table, like, whenever they're eating bread, there's, like, a bottle of wine there that none of them touch. But so, like, she got a little bit of the wine in her, but also then she was, like, hugging her fiancé just before the guy shot him. So it's like, is she infected? Is she not? Obviously, they want us to ask that. But also, this movie, we haven't talked about it, but this movie was edited shittily.
Yes, it was. Very poorly. That scene where she shoots the guy through the car window. There's like a split second frame of his face from the side looking in the window. The kind of frame that would be the cut where they would edit in the effects shot and show his head explode or something. But it's just him looking in the window, and then it's maybe 2 frames, and then all of a sudden it's back, like the camera's above the car, and he just falls on the ground dead. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why did they put that one, like 2 frames of the side of his face that it had no purpose? There was a lot of that kind of weirdness in the movie.
Like the scene where the Queen of the Damned or whatever, whenever she pulls her into the room, that doesn't happen. There's no, like, shot of her appearing and pulling her in. It's just we see Elizabeth wandering around, and then all of a sudden, bam, cut, and now we're inside the apartment, and Nightgown Lady has just, like, is pulling her in through the door. So there's just no connective tissue there. It's just like, you're just startled into this thing, and your brain is left to fill in the rest. It's very strange. That said, it's beautifully shot. Like, the framing of all of the shots is magnifique, but the editing is terrible, and the music is so bad.
Yeah. It's distractingly bad. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it is laughable, and it I guess it adds to its weird charm, but it would have added a lot more if it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's like the musical stylings of a first day on the job training video for a traveling fair.
It's like that's great. It's like a Golden Corral employee training video music.
Yeah. And now when the chicken thighs get low, replace them immediately. But when the steak gets low, just let it kind of sit there for a while.
This is how you know how to top off the chocolate fountain.
Now, this ain't no Sizzler, you hear? This is Golden Corral.
This ain't no Sizzler. Oh, by the way, there's a great, very, very bad translation in the subtitles in the scene where they're in the farmhouse, the two men, the two hunters or whatever, farmers with Elizabeth. The guy says, he tells her to have a bit of pate, and the subtitle says, drink a bit of pate.
Oh, no.
I was like, wait a minute, did I just see that? And I reel it back. I'm like, drink a bit of pate?
Oh,
so, pate smoothie.
Oh, no! Oh. Cut your kale smoothie with a bit of this pate.
Oh, man, this is livery.
Ooh, what is that? Are those little mineral deposits I'm tasting?
Are these kidney stones? I thought it was boba.
Gross! Oh, no! Protein boba!
Oh, yeah.
No.
Drink a bit of pate.
Oh, no. So that was let's scare grapes to death.
Let's spray pesticide to death.
Yeah, the grapes of Jessica. It was good. It was entertaining. It was a lot of fun. It was gory and wonderful for it, and it was shoddily pieced together and just really a wild soundtrack that it's easy to forget about until all of a sudden it rises back up, because it's just these little intermittent shots where it's like playing like but then like it goes away and you get to like focus on these really cool scenes, and then they're traveling and
the whole advent of like, you know, audiences expecting something that resembles reality in some vague sense. I always wonder where that came about, because back in the 70s, no one gave a shit. Like, sound effects were terrible, you know, and that wasn't that long ago, really. I mean, it was 40 years ago. The sound effects were terrible. There was no continuity, you know, nobody gave a shit if things didn't make sense, you know, and then nowadays it's like even the worst movies, unless they're intentionally doing it, you know, are pretty good about, you know, like making sure that things kind of could happen in some vague version of reality. I mean, you know, beyond like the supernatural stuff or whatever. Like there's just so much of that. Like music doesn't fit really, and the sound effects don't fit, and all the audio is dubbed because they probably couldn't afford to record audio on site,
yeah,
which was common back then. But you know, back then those movies made money, so it was like, well, fuck it. Why? You know, we're not making actual art here. Let's, you know. But that's what's cool about Jean Rollin, is that he was trying to make actual art and kind of succeeded.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't feel like we made it sound great, but it's kind of great. Like it's like whenever it's firing on all cylinders, this movie is like top notch. It's super gory. It's really, really like you get into it. Like it really like draws you in. Then other parts are like, oh my god, how long could this possibly take?
Yeah.
But like its high points are real high.
I mean, it's, you know, there was some really sophisticated stuff happening in film in the 70s. And this movie is very much a genre film. I mean, it's even within the world of horror, you're like busting into subgenres to get to the heart of this one. And yet it still manages to succeed even in 2024 as an art film, and, you know, part of a director whose entire catalog is kind of considered classic. I mean, even his fucking porns are considered classic.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm sure they're quite classy.
No doubt. And I'm sure I'll watch all of them to find out. No.
Yes. I'm going to need the 45 DVD set.
If they have that weird mannequin woman, I'll watch that one.
Yeah. Apparently, yeah. I think she was in like a lot of his movies.
Yeah. I mean, she has a very unique face. I mean, she has one of those faces that looks like AI, where they take a composite of, you know, every white guy's blonde-haired woman dream, and then they make that face. She had that face. Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah, and she had 14 1/2 of fingers too.
That's correct. She had a tapestry of halvesy fingers.
Yeah, the what is it? The warp and waft or whatever of fingers interlacing.
I love that AI really struggles with fingers.
Yeah, it's good. I do too.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
How do these even work?
It's like real art. Everyone struggles with the fingers.
Oh, fantastic. So that was that movie. Good job, us. Yay!
Yay! I'm glad we covered that. His name is when I was working at the bookstore, like way back in the theater days. I would read like Sight and Sound and Cine. I don't even remember what it was called, but like the art nerd movie. I mean, the movie nerd, like arty cinema magazines, and his name came up all the time, and I would always see the pictures from him and just be like, those movies look terrible. Like, that just looks so dumb. But his name comes up all the time when you read about particularly the history of horror film and stuff like that. And, I get it. I mean, nobody makes movies like that. It's very, very unique.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just thinking about this as like part of the zombie movie subgenre, like, it's a contender for like a top zombie movie. Like there are parts of it that are really rough, but like as far as something that's unique and different and not just churning out the same thing over and over again, this movie is at least for zombie movie fans, this is a solid deep cut and like top 10 potential contender. Like, it's real good.
And it has some of that Romero style, social commentary. I mean, like, the whole conceit of the movie is that all these people are being infected by some ridiculous custom-made pesticide that her dickhead husband made. And so it's like this weird environmental message going on in this 70s movie with lots of boobies. Is that audible? that beeping sound? Is that audible? No.
I can't hear a beeping sound.
Well, I'm glad I mentioned it.
Nice. And yeah, I think part of it, like, I think he was trying to not be heavy-handed, but he also, like, kind of missed it. But there was a lot of social commentary here that's probably hyper-local to 1978 France. But, like, thing where, like, the first infected guy, instead of chasing her, he like, sits down on the train tracks and cries.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, we've got something going on here. And the way that the population reacts to Lucy, where they're just watching and they're waiting because they know that Lukasz is going to be the one to do the thing. And so they're willing to, like, there's this like apathy to what's going on around them, and these like weird pleas, like the guy asking for a cure. Like there's a lot going on here that's really interesting, and I'm sure that it's probably like cogent, like as a whole. Like if you like sit down and analyze it all together, I'm sure there's like some really solid stuff there. I didn't feel like putting it together. I was like, I don't care, but it's there's a lot of really cool going on in this movie, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I do. I like the kind of the self-aware take on zombies. I mean, there is a little bit of that. Well, there's a good amount, I guess, in Night Shots where they all come out and they're just kind of wandering around zombie-like. But they're, you can interact with most of them. I mean, they at least the ones they want you to see being interacted with. They talk, and they sometimes have flashes of their humanity and stuff. It's that's pretty unique, particularly that far back. I mean, damn.
I guess back then there weren't like they hadn't established the ruts that zombies have to be in now, but so there was still like a little bit more freedom where you could just be like, oh yeah, what if zombies but this, instead of like now it's like, all right, well I have to pick the one little way that I'll divert from the mainstream zombie thing, and that will be my little artistic touch.
That is the downside of the modern era of everything needs to be explained. I mean, you can't make a zombie movie now without some arcane level of rule following, and like time travel people. You can't make a time travel movie without wait a minute, you broke the fourth rule of time travel. It's like, get the fuck out of here, man. Back then it was just like, fuck this, we're making zombies. That's it.
Yeah.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, it's fine. What does it mean at the end? Who could say?
Who could say? Who cares?
Yeah, you go back to your life now. Goodbye.
That's so gleeful.
Oh, good. So, John, what else have you been watching and or consuming and or doing, horror or otherwise?
We are in the middle of watching Dune 2. And
yeah, that is the type of thing one would be in the middle of.
Yeah, no kidding. And the Harkonnens are pretty horror movie-ish. Their portrayal in the film is pretty cool, particularly in the second film. Well, first one too with Skarsgård, but like in the second one you see a lot more of them, obviously, because they've now taken over. So it's it's seeing them like their gladiator arena and all that kind of shit, and all that's just their weird little culture. It was really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I don't like the teen love aspect of it. It's really annoying. I'm like, okay, let's just stop. And but it definitely has its strengths. I don't know. What about you?
I haven't watched that one. I'm a fan of Zendaya, but not really a Chalamet bro.
Yeah, I don't like him very much. I mean, he's fine, but whatever.
Yeah, he doesn't do a bad job. I'm just not like, I don't know. I'm like, I kind of feel like, where did this guy come from, and why is he famous?
Yeah,
but it's
because
fine.
he looks
He
looks like a pencil. Like, why is he the great Muad'Dib who names himself after a desert mouse? I don't.
Nice.
I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, but I did watch, I saw the TV Glow. It's very good.
Is it?
I was surprised. I didn't really know what it was going to be about, and it is like kind of a coming of age horror, and it's also a big call out like to my generation's the television that we grew up with. So it's very Buffy the Vampire Slayer-esque and very Nickelodeon. It's great. It's fantastic.
That's cool.
I highly recommend it. Yeah.
That's cool.
And so that's what we've been doing. But the real question that you should be concerning yourself with, dear listener, sweet listener, is what are we going to watch next, John?
Oh. Well, I hyped it up quite a bit last time, and I'm super excited about it. It's ridiculous. It's on Shudder. I was like flipping through Shudder like I often do, going, no, seen it, no, and landed on this movie, and I was just like, that looks so fucking stupid. I'm watching it. And because they have a lot of those on there. That's how I saw. No, that's not how I saw Chopping Mall, but it was the same kind of situation where I saw that and I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm watching it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the movie I picked is a film that was shot in Houston, Texas, in 1987.
Oh,
It is a horror film that prominently features the Museum of Natural Science, which is the centerpiece setting of the bulk of the film. It is 1987's The Lamp by John Daly. Or is it? What is it? Thomas Daly. I'm John. He's Thomas. John Thomas.
Yeah. John Thomas.
Thomas Daly. It's about it's about a fucking genie bottle and a genie who is killing people and a bunch of young people who camp out in the Museum of Natural Science in Houston and end up having to, deal with this murderous. It's fucking weird.
Oh my god.
It's so good.
For those looking, it's also known as the
outing. Yes, because they have their little outing to go to the Museum of Natural Science. I will give one little teaser just to make sure that you go out and watch this movie immediately. There is a security guard who works in the museum who sings opera.
Oh no.
And it is like just happily as he's on patrol walking around the museum.
Okay.
This movie is fucking hilarious. I'm so glad that I found it on Shudder, and I mean, it's fucking terrible, and I loved it.
Nice. This is gonna be great. So tune in here 2 weeks hence when we cover The Lamp / The Outing, 1987, Tom Daly, Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Man, I'm sorry you have to die, but hopefully not before you watch The Lamp.